Fools, welcome back to another Formula Fools podcast. We missed last week because there wasn't a race. We are moving studios and it's just been hectic around here we got the chocolates work, so we apologise for that one. I'm David, your guide through the twists and turns, and with me is Kevin Magnussen.
Sorry?
He's a dad and you're a dad now, so...
Well, no, not yet.
Oh,
shit. Expecting.
Okay. I'll keep trying to figure out which driver you are.
Okay. Right.
I just made that up on the spot, Skin. I didn't know what to say because I didn't write anything for your thing again.
Okay.
I'll get Chad on the job for next week. Okay, from pit lane antics to racing riddles, we're here to make you laugh and question your sanity. Sit back, buckle up. It's time for Formula Fools. We're in a rush. It's been a hectic morning. Skin will tell you about that. He probably won't. Anyway, Skin, you've got a question for me.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I guess obviously watching the race over the weekend, there was a bit of drama between the McLaren drivers, Lando and Oscar, which I'm sure we'll talk about in more detail later when we discuss the race. But watching it, I kind of realised there's obviously a heap of history in terms of sort of team driver rivalries that I just really don't have any great understanding of. The commentators were talking about heaps of examples that I'd never heard of. I think there was someone who they mentioned someone who like had a sort of similar situation where they had to let their teammate pass and they waited until like the very last lap to do it.
Yes, it would have been. I can't remember, but yes,
nice.
Was it Schumacher Barrichello?
Potentially.
I think it might have been Schumacher Barrichello, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they were they were bringing up heaps of examples like that because I think Lando waited until like the third last lap or something.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of drama. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to get a better understanding of some of the historical rivalries that have happened, why they're so exciting and important, why that seemed like such a big drama. Like I can kind of follow, I kind of understand. It was a bit weird. It was a weird situation, but I don't know if I have a full appreciation for like why that's such a big deal in the F1 world.
Yeah. Yeah. So really, like we did our Ayrton Senna, fucking hell, Dave. We did our Ayrton Senna episode a few weeks back and we spoke about his rivalry with Prost.
Yes.
There were rivalries before that, but this was kind of the biggest inter-team rivalry and it was probably the biggest... not mismanagement of people, but it kind of highlighted that managing drivers would be a difficult thing. There's a very big thing with racing drivers where you'll always hear them talk about, if you watch Drive to Survive, they say it all the fucking time, like your biggest rival is your teammate because you've got the same machinery on paper and you work closely together. Your engineers are always trying to get the best for the team. So therefore, on track, you should always be very close to each other because you should have the exact same strategy, the exact same or close to, and the exact same machinery. So drivers always have this psychology of like, if I beat my teammate, I'm doing good. Doesn't matter about who else you beat on track. If you beat your teammate, you're doing good, which is why Checo's getting shit all over recently is because he's not even close to beating his teammate.
Okay.
He's not even close to smelling his teammate's gearbox. Usually we'll see it when it's like the newcomer versus the kind of older generation driver. George and Lewis, great example. George is like the young guy that's going to lead the team into the future. Lewis is the older world champion that is going to leave the team and probably won't be in the sport as long as George will be as of now.
Yeah.
So it's a great example of it. When it's that kind of situation, you usually get, in Lewis George's situation, it's usually a bit more friendly. Can get a bit heated, but it's usually a bit more like, I'll give him some wisdom. He's going to he's going to try and beat me and I've got all this experience. In McLaren's problem, they have got two world-class drivers in their car. We've seen this many times before, and I'll go through some examples. That leads to crazy inter-team rivalries, crazy management situations for the team, and it makes it very difficult.
Okay.
So the first one I wrote down on my list was Ayrton Senna. Fucking hell, Dave. I've been hanging around with you boys too long.
I don't say it
I know,
wrong.
Lee says it all the time.
Oh.
Ayrton Senna versus Alan Prost in the 88-89 season. Obviously, they were teammates for a touch longer, like a bit earlier, touch later than that. But their rivalry was the biggest one that we'd seen to that date. I mean, like the Niki Lauda, James Hunt one was pretty big, but they weren't teammates. They were McLaren and Ferrari. These two both got hired into McLaren. Well, Alan Prost was already a world champion with McLaren, and then Senna got hired as like the young pretender. And yeah, Ron Dennis saw that he was going to be world champion. He saw he had talent and things like that. Alan didn't like it, and they locked heads a lot of the time, off and on track. Yeah, so that's the main thing I wrote about them was their clashing personalities. Like Senna was very aggressive in the way that he approached driving and the way he approached like the way he would talk about things. So he was not afraid of like saying this is bullshit or there's politics involved here or blah, blah, whatever. Whereas Alain Prost was a lot more calculated. Like even on track, he would know that if he needed to win a world championship and finish fifth, he wouldn't try and get fourth or try and get a win. He would just finish fifth because it would win him the world championship or it would get him the maximum amount of points out of that weekend. Whereas Senna was, I'm winning or I'm not finishing. Like it was a do or die kind of situation. Mm. And Alain was a lot better at the politics as well. So off track, he could be a lot more like sneaky with speaking to the stewards and with the FIA and things like that. And he knew how to play the politics and the friend game kind of thing. Whereas Senna made a fair few enemies on his way up to the top. But yeah, they had some very big incidents. Obviously, we spoke about it in the Senna episode, the 89 Japanese Grand Prix when they kind of took each other out so that they could win the race. And it was all based on Senna took Prost out, and it was all based on Prost trying to take Senna out the year before, and all that drama. So yeah, that was kind of the first big one that we saw. It was very clear after Prost had retired from the sport and Senna had died that like this is going to be a big thing moving forward, and team principals need to make sure that they're not hiring two drivers that are so determined to win like that. So you always hear like number one, number two driver, which is weird, but when you look at Mercedes for the past few years, and we'll go on to them next, which is Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, they were the best of friends growing up as kids, Lewis and Nico. And then both made it to F1. Lewis was in the McLaren, and I think Nico Rosberg was in the Williams, and then moved to Mercedes and things like that before Mercedes were great. When they were in F1 and they would get a podium together, you'd see them like hug and high five, and like they'd be so excited because they karted together, they grew up together, they holidayed together, they were best of friends. And then Lewis moved to Mercedes. Two drivers really wanted to win a world championship, would literally do anything to win a world championship. I think the year Nico won in 2016, he was like not sleeping in the same room as his wife because he believed that he needed to 100% focus just on racing. And like it was, mate, the things he did, the minute details he would do, like changing the stitching in his gloves so that his gloves would be like a microgram lighter, like stupid shit like that. That everything he said, all of this shit made him win the world championship that year. But it was also the mental game. Like Lewis knows how to play the mental game. He'll get out the car and he'll say the right thing. This weekend, for example, with him and Max, he's like, oh yeah, there's nothing from my side, but obviously we know from Max's side. Like he's saying these things because he's getting in Max's head. He knows how to play this like mental game of just like mentally fucking people. And he'd done it with Rosberg since the moment he started at Mercedes. So Rosberg dedicated all his time, he put all this effort in and won the world championship in 2016, immediately retires. Like literally wins the world championship, hands his notice in, seen a bit, I'm retired. Has never raced again since then. Because he knew that he was like, I can't do this. Like I can't keep this up. Whereas Lewis is just like, I can fucking do this all day long.
Yeah, okay.
Which is what makes him such a great driver. But they came to their rivalry became so intense that friendship they once had was just like, it just fucking blew up. And it all starts with just like little things like there was, when Lewis went to the team, he had one set of engineers and he had one set of mechanics on his side of the garage. And then all of a sudden them mechanics get swapped over and Lewis gets Nico's and Nico gets Lewis's. And it was like, why is this happening? And then Lewis all of a sudden starts winning. Then like he wins the next like 3 or 4 races or something. So he starts playing these weird psychological games with Nico, and it really fucked with him. There's a couple of races where like we looked at Spain a few weeks ago where they crashed into each other and went in the gravel. Yeah. Things like that really started to bring the heat for the team. And then this one at the US GP, this was just after Lewis had won his 3rd world championship in total, 2nd with Mercedes. It was kind of a nothing incident. He pushed Nico wide a little bit. I think he might have popped his tire or something on like lap 1. And then Nico kind of fought back through the field. And then Lewis was like, he was aggressive driving, but nothing like crazy. And then in the cool down room afterwards, Nico Rosberg visually is pissed off. I'm just going to play the video.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's just really awkward.
That is, isn't it?
Lewis goes in all cocky, hugs can't remember the guy's name, hugs one of the Mercedes engineers and then throws Nico the hat. Nico then chucks it back at him because he's visually pissed off. This was in 2015. I think this was one of the moments for Nico where he realized I've got to change my mentality for 2016 if I'm going to win, because this guy's like he knows he's on camera, he knows what he's doing, and he's willing to just like toss the cap and just be like, you know, show that I'm the bigger man. Like I've fucking beat you again for the second year in a row. So that's the kind of personality that Lewis Hamilton is, and that's the kind of inter-team rivalry you don't want.
Okay.
Toto Wolff after the Spanish Grand Prix, the big crash after the Spanish Grand Prix, he said, look, like the FIA stewards said it was a racing incident. Neither of them are to blame. He's like, we're not going to interfere here. But it came in 2016. It was very clear. Like these two came together a lot. They would crash into or not even crash into each other. They would clip wings and like pop tires and things. And it was like, they could throw away the championship by fucking hitting each other. And it got very tense. The teams from either side of the garage stopped sharing information. Setups were stopped they stopped sharing setup information and things like that. And it put a massive divide down the pit wall in Mercedes. So when Nico retired, Toto made it very clear that we are not going to have this again. And so he hired Valtteri Bottas, fantastic driver, but a number 2. He's never going to win a world championship. He'll win a few races, but he's not got that determination. He's not got that grit to get through and beat Lewis Hamilton. And I think it was made very clear in his contract and things that he was there to support Lewis Hamilton and support the team. Okay. So that's their kind of story and things like that. And that's a way that you can take a bad situation like what Lewis and Nico had and then flip it to be a good situation with your next driver hire, which is probably why Ferrari are fucked over the next 2 years. Because Lewis is not going to want to be a number 2. But Charles has been a number 2. He was a number 2 to Seb and hated it. And he's not been able to be a number 1 because the car hasn't been fast enough since Carlos has been in the team. So like, they've got 2 number 1 drivers in the team next year.
Right.
It's going to be interesting. If they make a good car next year on 26, they're going to crash a lot into each other. Okay. And they're going to have a lot of battles and shit. Which is also why we saw like Danny Rick and Max Verstappen when like their last season as teammates at Red Bull, they came together quite a lot. And it was because they both wanted to be number 1.
Okay.
Next on my list, I wrote Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber. Any long-term F1 fans will know the Multi 21 incident. I think we've spoken about it, but you've not seen the video to it yet. So I'll give a bit of context before I show the cool down room after the race. Multi 21 was a subliminal message, exactly the same as what we had with Norris and Piastri this weekend. 21 just meant car number 2 finishes ahead of car number 1. Back in the day, if you won the world championship, so Sebastian Vettel had won the world championship previously, you have to be car number 1. And your teammate has to then be car number 2, as in your physical number on the car. So Multi 21 means Mark Webber finishes ahead of Sebastian Vettel. We're in this order. There's 15, 20 laps to go, whatever it is. Do not change position. Don't attack your teammate. Back off. Let him win the race. Very similar to what we had this weekend in ways. So Seb got the message, ignored the message, attacked Mark, overtook him, won the race. This is the cool down room afterwards.
Multi 21, Seb. Yeah, Multi 21.
Cross.
Okay. Yeah. Dramas. So yeah, that was like one of the funniest moments in F1, and people will still talk about. I think Multi 21 was mentioned this weekend with the Lando Oscar stuff. Okay. I'm pretty sure people were like, "This is feeling awfully familiar than Malaysia." So yeah, that was again. It was a that was a number 1 driver in Seb wanting to just fucking dominate and show that he's the best driver. He didn't want Mark to have an inch because he knew that if he gave Mark an inch, like Mark's a very, very good driver, and Mark is probably one of them drivers where you're like, oh, he should have probably been a world champion, but he never actually got the opportunity to become world champion because Seb was so much better than him.
Right. Okay.
And also they designed cars around Seb and things like that.
Was the situation there something like McLaren on the weekend where the team had sort of fucked up and made the order a bit weird, or like what would their reasoning have been for wanting driver 2 to go to position 1? Like, why would you not just want whoever's faster?
Yeah. So this was actually a lot more clear cut than the weekend. This was Mark had dominated all weekend. He had a great qualifying, was winning the race. Like he was in the lead, and then Seb was in second. Seb was on a slightly faster strategy in terms of his tyre life, but they had a massive gap behind them. And so their pre-race meeting said, if at the 3/4 mark, let's just say, I'm not 100%, I wasn't there. I wish I was. At the 3/4 mark, if whatever the position of the cars are in, we're locking it in and you're staying in that position. So at that point, Mark was ahead of Seb. So the rule was multi-21, you stay where you are. Don't attack your teammate.
Yeah. But the reasoning for that rule just being like, what? So you don't risk hitting each other?
You don't risk hitting each other. Yeah, exactly. Okay. You're not going to crash. You're not going to put too much straight. Because Seb would have had to change his engine mode or push his engine slightly more. Like there's no lifting. He's really pushing it. So like, we've got to make these engines last. We're winning the championship. We've got a big gap to the guys behind. Let's just fucking cruise. Let's cruise to the finish. You're going to get great points anyway, Seb. Seb didn't like it.
Gotcha.
And I think the thing is as well with drivers, when you're a touch younger, you're a little more naive, and when you're in the car, you get hot-headed and blah, 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 blah. If you, especially in Lando's instance, if you're not a world champion already, like when we look at Max in 2021, some of the things he did were kind of ridiculous. When you look at Lewis in 2006, 2007, early 2008, like some of the things he did was ridiculous. Like some of the moves he was making were a bit crazy, like late dives, like things like this. What Lando is doing now is just so classic to people that aren't world champions that know they can be, is he just wants to fucking win everything. He just wants to dominate, and he needs to put that. He knows that if he beats his teammate on the track and mentally outside of the track, he will be the first world champion for McLaren since Lewis. Whereas if Oscar beats him here, Oscar's got an upper hand, or the team are going to favour Oscar. So I think it's a mental game from the drivers. But if Lando was to win the world championship this year, next year he wouldn't do this, because he would have that experience to go, oh, actually, I do need my teammate. And when we look at Max from 21 to 22, different driver. Mm-hmm. It's a shame the 21 Max driver came out this weekend, but we'll talk about that later. So that's the Mark Webber one. The last one I'll quickly run through. It's a very funny one. Fernando Alonso had moved to McLaren in 2007. His teammate was rookie driver Lewis Hamilton. Fernando is a 2-time world champion at this point. So like, he knows his place. He thinks he's the number one driver in McLaren. That's why they've hired him. Little did he know, Lewis Hamilton was a fucking guru and was just like, came out the blocks running and was like an amazing driver for a rookie. Like, I think he still has the best rookie season on record, which is just crazy that no one has beat it since then. But also he went into a very fast car. This was a qualifying session. So this is Q3. And back in the day, they would sometimes do quick pit stops. They would do like race kind of pit stops during quali so they would put more fuel in the car, and then they'd do 2 fast laps, come in, quickly change tires, 2 more fast laps. Both McLaren drivers needed to pit to change the tyres. Fernando was coming in first.
Faster than a teammate. There's a psychological factor as well as the tactics can also mean the psychological tactics. And I think Hamilton just wants to put down the marker. He wants to be in front of his teammate. Pole position here is putting you in a dominant position. Very difficult circuit to overtake. And I don't know what the rules are about their tactics and fuel loads and stuff, whether or not he gets an advantage by being ahead of his
team. They're putting fuel in the car, by the way.
Right.
No, but it's not like they're not wheeling him into the pits.
But he's definitely putting a harder time.
So Lewis is behind. The lollipop has been flipped, so that means you need to go.
Have they raised the lollipop to let Alonso out? Yep, they want him out of there. Now Alonso's not getting on with it. Only a minute and 40 to go. Is he blocking Hamilton here? Is that a bit of a tactic within the team there to give Hamilton a bit of a headache?
And then Hamilton rolls in, and Hamilton misses the flag. So Hamilton can't set another lap time. Fernando Alonso goes out, beats his lap time, gets pole.
No way.
Yeah.
That is dirty as.
Dirty as fuck. And this is why when I say like Fernando Alonso is one of the best drivers, it's because he'll fuck you up in every way, shape or form. He'll do whatever that he can to fuck you.
Wow.
So obviously this caused like massive divide in the garage instantly. There was already crazy battles and stuff going on. A funny thing to note, because one thing I wrote down for this one is like, for this segment is sponsors can get involved and start to like drop teams. Like we've seen things happen with teams and rivalries where they've got bad press and then sponsors have gone, we don't like that. And they're we're pulling out next season. Santander, the bank, made an amazing advert after all of this shit mid-season where they had, you know, the Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better song?
Yep.
They had Fernando and Lewis get into a hotel and racing to check in, racing to get to the lift, racing to get into the room, racing to how, and everything was them just battling each other because of this shit. It's one of the funniest adverts. I couldn't find it on YouTube, but try and have a find. It's amazing.
Okay.
So yeah, this ended very poorly for Fernando Alonso, and he ended up leaving the team after just one season with them. I think he might have even had a multi-year contract, and they ended it early, and he went back to Renault. And then we obviously know Crashgate. So yeah, it's pretty shit if things like this happen.
Right. Okay. So you've made these like team rivalries and having sort of two number one drivers sound terrible.
Yep.
Is there anything good about it? Like in theory, I would have thought you would want two very good drivers because you would maximize your chances of getting a lot of points.
Yep.
And I assume there has to be something good about it. Otherwise, like if we've known since Senna in '89 that having driver rivalries is terrible for your team, then why would Mercedes hire two very good drivers, 30 years later? And,
it's a great question. The simplest answer is, when the whole like joke of like girls finding a broken guy and they're like, I can fix him. I honestly think it's that. I think it's that everyone thinks they can do a better job than the previous person. I think Zach Brown has hired two amazing drivers and he's going to have a lot on his hands. Same for Fred for next year in the Ferrari. I think they've hired two amazing drivers thinking, well, we can manage this. We can do a better job than what has been done in the past.
Right.
And I think that more often than not, it probably can go really well, but I think more often than not, it's going to come down to shit like this. And I think it is literally just people thinking they can do. People like Zach and other top managers thinking, well, we're not going to get like that. We're going to manage this way better.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you can fucking manage it, you're going to have the two fastest drivers. You're going to fucking clean sweep every weekend. But it doesn't always happen like that. I would say the best team dynamic you can have is the fastest driver and the most consistent driver, which is why Audi for 2026. What they're doing is going to be very interesting because they've got Nico Hülkenberg, who is consistent as fuck. Maybe not the fastest all the time, but he's always going to get in the points if you give him a good car. If they do get Carlos Sainz, they've then got a fast as fuck driver who's going to perform, going to put it on the podium all the time and like do all of that. Nico is that perfect consistency. They now just need speed. So yeah.
Okay.
That's what I reckon you need to do.
All right. I like it.
And moving on to the Hungarian Grand Prix this weekend. It's the second to last race of the first part of the season. We've got Spa this weekend coming up, my favourite track, and then we go into the winter break. Ryan has been on the tools. He has done a hot lap recap for us from the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Hey, welcome back, race fans, to another thrilling edition of the Hot Lap Recap. Now, this time we are diving headfirst into the drama-filled Hungarian Grand Prix, where being PC was the name of the game. But in this case, guys, PC actually stands for Petulant Children. Yeah. And we all know who I'm referring to, don't we? Yeah, that's right. Lando and Max well and truly threw their toys out of the pram, especially Verstappen, who had a race to forget. And it might have had something to do with those late night sim racing escapades that he was rumoured to have been doing. Yeah, that's right. Rumour has it he was up in the early hours battling it out in the virtual world, only to wake up early for another sim race in the morning, all before the actual Grand Prix. No wonder he's a bit cranky on the radio and that he was a bit of a hothead on the track. In fact, I've got a bit of radio comms for you to enjoy about that.
It was Verstappen. He arrived at control.
Right. I think there's a penalty coming Max Verstappen's way for causing a collision there. It's been noted, Martin, but I don't see how that isn't causing a collision.
Yeah, moved under braking. I'm not even going to get into a radio fight with the other teams, Max. We'll let the stewards do their thing. It's childish on the radio. Childish.
I think there are some words coming behind closed doors.
Okay, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right. The real stars of the show were the McLaren duo, who delivered a stunning 1-2 finish, and Piastri in particular claiming his maiden Grand Prix victory in style. However, the race wasn't without its controversies, was it? McLaren's team orders nearly derailed the perfect result for them when Norris initially refused to let Piastri through despite repeated requests from the pit wall. It took a stern reminder from his engineer about the importance of teamwork for Norris to finally relent, allowing Piastri to then take the lead just 2 laps from the end. In fact, here is that radio message.
The way to win a championship is not by yourself, it's with the team. You're going to need Oscar and you're going to need the team.
Lando Norris is backing off. He was on the cusp of a second Grand Prix victory.
Meanwhile, old rivals Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, back together, had it coming together as they battled for third place. Now, Verstappen, you could tell, just clearly frustrated with his car's performance, his team strategy, everything, his tiredness, and it made him have this desperate lunge at turn 1, which resulted in a collision that sent him flying through the air and then into the runoff area after hitting Hamilton's tyre. Now, Hamilton held on to third, while Verstappen had to settle for 5th in the end behind Charles Leclerc. And there is, at the time of recording, another potential penalty coming his way too because of that incident with Hamilton. Throughout the race, Verstappen's radio messages were peppered with expletives as he complained about everything from his car's grip to the team's pit stop choices. Here is another example of one of those.
Well, that's some gentle introduction.
No, mate, don't give me that. You guys give me this strategy, okay? I'm trying to rescue myself.
And behind Verstappen, Ferrari's Carlos Sainz managed to take 6th, while the second Red Bull of Sergio Perez and Mercedes' George Russell recovered from those really poor starting positions that were close to the back to eventually take 7th and 8th. And RB's Yuki Tsunoda and Aston Martin's Lance Stroll completed the points positions, taking 9th and 10th. So there we go. In the end, it was a day to remember for McLaren and a day to forget for Red Bull. Piastri's maiden win, Norris's second place, again his 12th one I think, marked the team's first 1-2 finish since the 2021 Italian Grand Prix, a testament to their hard work and dedication. And as for Verstappen, perhaps it's time to lay off those late night sim racing adventures, and focus on the real thing, like the rest of the grown-ups in the Formula One world. After all, being a petulant child on the track won't win you any championships. Although sometimes being selfish does, doesn't it? That's right. That's it for now, folks. Until next time, keep your engines revved and keep your tempers in check. See you at the next Hot Lap recap, where Spa will be the focus of our attention. Ciao.
Go Ryan.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm liking that. Just something before we do dive into the race of what Ryan said there. Yuki Tsunoda's qualifying crash at the weekend. You didn't see this one, did you?
I haven't, no.
So I think it was Q1 or Q2 or something. He's gone around a corner and on the exit, he's just kind of drifted off a little bit wide and he's gone onto like the AstroTurf strip and it's kind of pulled him wide again. He's then hit a bump off track and it's kind of shot his car up into the air. He's then like hit the barrier and just fucking like, it's destroyed the fucking car. It was a big impact. It looked very similar to like Rubens Barrichello's impact in the 94 Imola Grand Prix that like put him out of the race. The news from that, he still obviously raced and had a fucking amazing race. We'll get onto Yuki in a minute.
Yeah.
His crash was 68 Gs on impact. Roman Grosjean's crash, where he burst into flames and cut through the barrier, was 67. So this was a bigger impact than Roman Grosjean's crash.
What the heck?
Which is unreal. He was like visibly shaken up, like it was a very big impact. I don't think he even had time to let go of the wheel. So it was like his hands would have taken a massive shunt in that.
Wow.
So yeah, very impressive that he came back and did what he did on the Sunday.
How the hell did he do that? And how did they get the car ready again?
Well, they would have had almost 24 hours to like repair it. And it would have pretty much been an entire rebuild, which the mechanics would have worked through the night. Like they would have broke the, the curfew on the pits, but you can, under special circumstances, you can apply to break curfew and not sustain a penalty for like mechanics staying overnight and things like that to put the car together. So yeah, they would have had to break curfew to get that prepared for the race.
Crikey.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also testament to the team as well for putting that car back together, having it set up to the correct specification, and then clearly it working because you had a fucking fantastic race. So, Skin, I see here your first two questions are both about Max Verstappen. Why was Max so grumpy? I love the bluntness of it.
Pretty much. He seemed proper off it all day, didn't he?
Yeah, literally.
Weird.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I mean, Ryan summed it up perfectly. He stayed up till fucking 3 a.m. sim racing, had like 3 or 4 hours sleep, then woke up and finished the sim race, and then he got to the track.
Yeah, but doesn't he often do that? Doesn't he froth?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, but like, mate, you've not won in... When was the last time Max won? Like 3 races ago, 4 races ago? Like, your car is underperforming. You probably should be 100% focusing on your F1 career, not sim racing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, I just didn't understand what was going on. So he was obviously just off it for whatever reason. But like that message that Ryan played in his whole lap recap, what is even going on there? So the engineer says, well, that's some gentle introduction. What is that even referring to?
So he came out the pits on, I think it was a fresh set of mediums. And so because they pitted him slightly earlier, so he needed to like extend the stint through so the tires would last. So they're saying like you usually would say you would gently ease your tires in, like don't go too fast straight away, and like softly heat them up so that you're not gonna flash the surface and burn the rubber up too quickly. So the engineer is saying like he's being sarcastic. You've gone out there and fucking pounded it around the course, and you've set. I think he may have set a fastest lap, or he set a PB sector or something. It's like you're an idiot. You're doing the wrong thing. Right. You're destroying your tires. Is basically the message.
Right. Okay. And then old Max just bites back pretty hard, eh?
Yeah. Which is Yeah, I think this links up very well with McLaren's side of things and Lando's engineer saying, mate, that other team radio message that Ryan played, like, mate, you're going to need Oscar, you're going to need the team. It's like, Max, you do realize you won 3 world championships because of your amazing team of strategists, of aerodynamicists, of engineers and blah, blah, and Checo and everything like that. It's like, maybe don't call them cunts or fuckheads or whatever you're doing here, because like, they're the people making you win. Like literally without them, you're fucked. So yeah,
that was chaotic. What do you know what he was so upset about though? Because he kept complaining about their strategy and they were doing things wrong. Was there any? Did he actually have any grounds?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Red Bull fucked. They fucked up on the strategy, but I don't think it was as bad as what he made it out to be. Stint 1, they just left him out way too long, and it was like everyone around him was pitting. It was like, can you not see that all the guys are going to undercut you because they're going like they're catching you up? And so I think that's also probably why he then pushed, because he was like, well, I've got ground to make up. I've pitted later. Like I'm just going to fucking hammer it. But yeah, Red Bull definitely didn't do the best strategy, especially when you look at McLaren's strategy, which was very well done. They just messed it up. And yeah, but the thing is, this is the annoying thing is if Max had just kept a level head, he would have eventually got past Lewis. Like it was very clear he was faster than, he was like 8 seconds off him, then caught it within like 4 or 5 laps. Like he was dominating, maybe not 4 or 5, but like he caught him up. If he had just like actually taken it easy and raced smart, like if he had made it smarter overtaking moves instead of just lunging and fucking hitting Lewis, like.
Yeah, that was quite funny. Like, not that I've ever driven a racing car ever, but that didn't look like the smartest overtaking move.
It was a day late and $1 short. That was
crazy.
Yeah. The moment I saw, because I think they overtook a back marker and like just before the braking zone, I was like, he's lunging. Oh, okay, he's hit him. It was like, mate, where did that come from? Like, yeah, he didn't have the legs to get down there.
I can't believe his car was okay after that. Yeah. He just finished the race. Like he
was like
flew up in the air and hit the ground so hard.
The front wing like bent sideways and it didn't snap. Yeah. Like nothing fell off the car. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a tank of a Red Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, weird. That, all right, at least, I suppose.
Yeah. You did also write down, should Max have given the spot back at the beginning of the race? Yes, he absolutely should have.
You reckon?
He went wide and gained a very clear advantage and managed to keep the overtake on Lando.
Yeah, but that was like, that was sort of what I didn't get, is not like, it didn't seem like the stewards had made a decision yet.
No.
So why would you just give the spot back? When, if it seems uncertain, would you not keep the spot and wait for them to make a decision and then?
No, because the decision. So if you've gone off the track and gained an advantage, you've got 2 options. Wait for the stewards to make a decision, which is going to be a 5-second penalty if you know you're guilty, or give the position back. Both of these are considering you know you're guilty. If you don't know you're guilty and you think, nah, we've got data here where we can present and go, we're not guilty, we don't deserve a penalty, then keep the position. They knew they were guilty. They knew, they could see on the data, he has not lifted off the throttle. He has gained an advantage by going off the track. So when the stewards then put it under investigation, Red Bull have shit the pants and gone, mate, give that back or you're getting a 5-second penalty. And they knew that with the pace McLaren had, 5 seconds could have been the if he had passed Lewis legitimately, it could have been the case of like Lewis could have stayed 4 seconds behind him and then he would have lost the podium. Mm-hmm. So like a 5-second penalty is way worse than just giving the position back. He should have given the position back in a better place, I reckon. I think he gave it back after turn 1, which was weird because turn 1's usually a better overtaking place. Turn 2 is like, he could have kind of given it back and then had a go at him into the next corner. Again, some of the things Max did this weekend did not look like he was a 3-time world champion. Okay. It's weird, but yeah, you just kind of, you want to get ahead of the stewards and so you don't receive that penalty. Okay. And also, as we've seen with K-Mag, like you can get penalty points on your license for doing shit like that. If it's hard evidence to say you have not even attempted to ease off the throttle, which I don't think he did. Shall we talk about, well, let's brush across Ferrari, Mercedes. Both have done a great job this weekend. I think Ferrari are kind of, I think I saw an interview with Charles saying like, we're clearly behind Red Bull and McLaren and we're either on par or we're a little bit behind the Mercedes. I think Ferrari is starting to realize that their development isn't going as planned. And I think the summer break will be very interesting to see how they develop that car and what they do for the second part of the season. Because usually, I've said it before, this is where Ferrari normally fall off the cliff and don't come back for the rest of the season. So it will be interesting, especially with Fred in charge. Keep an eye on Ferrari, I think, after Spa. Mercedes are doing something fucking right with that car. They, for the past few weeks, I feel like I've been saying they're starting to get it. It looks like they're getting it. And now I'm like, they're getting it. They are understanding that car. They know how to set it up and the drivers are getting the most out of it. George didn't have the best of races, but I think he's got unlucky with strategy and where he qualified and things. But Lewis had a great race. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask about George actually, because the commentators kept, I can't remember who, maybe George and Alonso, the commentators kept saying that they thought they were going to do a one-stop strategy to try and make up those like 20 odd seconds.
Yeah. I don't know where, like maybe they did try it and then they saw the degradation was higher. So then they pulled him in for a second stop. But like, yeah, it was probably the only way of doing something different to the top 6 to try and get onto the podium. But yeah. I think within the first 20 laps, it was fairly obvious. Like when a lot of the first people had started pitting, it was very obvious that was not going to work. So yeah, they must have just locked it in and gone deep into it with like tire saving early on to try and make it work. And yeah, it's just unfortunate. McLaren, Skin, your team.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
dramas.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it seems like since I decided that I'm going to follow them, they've done quite well, just saying.
They've done very well. Yeah. So, go Skin. Yeah. It's your fault. Your fault. You're because of you that they're doing well.
Exactly. But yeah, so no, that was cool. They obviously finished 1 and 2, but it was just a bit of a weird situation.
Very weird situation. Yeah. And as we spoke about at the first part of this pod, like these kind of things you definitely don't want to happen within your team, but it's for the fans, like for a neutral's perspective, this is fucking amazing because it's just drama.
Yeah, it just adds a bit of excitement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like so, this is why 2021 got a lot of people joined, like started watching F1 in 2021 because of the drama. The 4 years before that were boring as shit. And we've had a couple of years of boring shit. And now this year seems to be delivering.
Yeah.
Like 7 winners in 12 races or whatever. McLaren are all of a sudden coming good and it's amazing. But yeah, for the inter-team battle, it's Lando made a fair amount of mistakes with the way that he went about sending his message. But it's because of the mistakes McLaren made that he then was in that position.
Yeah, okay.
Like they shouldn't have pitted him before Oscar in that second stage if they wanted Oscar to win. Like it just shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, well, that was sort of my thinking as well. Like it became this massive drama at the end where it was like, I don't know. It was just such a weird situation. So they've pitted Lando to undercut Oscar to protect Lando from Hamilton, right? And then
yeah, well, I don't think they've pitted him to undercut Oscar. I think they've just pitted him to block the undercut from Hamilton, which I don't think was there. Like I'm sure it was like 7 or 8 seconds or 6 seconds or something.
Yeah, well, yeah. I thought the same thing. Anyway, so he's come out ahead of Oscar.
Yeah,
and then it was just strange. So Oscar was faster than Lando sort of the whole first half of the race and was just cruising in P1. And then as soon as Lando got into P1, he just Oscar just couldn't catch him for whatever reason. I don't really know what changed there.
They were very similarly matched in that last stint on pace. Like, I think in the last, because what lap was it? Did they do like 20 laps or something in that last stint after Oscar's pit stop? Yeah. It was a fair amount of laps. And the gap went from like, I think he came out, it was 3 seconds. And then before the position was given back, it was like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So over 15 laps, he'd not pulled away significantly. So it wasn't like Lando is way faster than Oscar. It was just that they were very similarly matched on pace, which was Lando's point. Like, hey, if he can catch up to me, I'll let him through. No problem. But they were both doing the same lap times, which was why McLaren kept saying, hey, you need to lift off in turn 4 and turn 11. And that was basically, hey, drop half a second a lap, please. Like, we need you to go slower so Oscar can catch you. And he was like, nah, if he wants to pass me, he can catch me up. So like, the problem came when they pitted Norris first, because it was obvious that Norris was going to come out ahead of Oscar, which I think they knew, but then they'd obviously spoken about then reversing the positions, which Lando then didn't want to do. But yeah, Oscar just didn't have the pace to catch him in that second stint, which was mind-blowing.
Yeah, and it just like went on so long that it became weird. Like, like I don't know, like if you'd changed the positions early and just let it go the whole time, or let them race for the rest of the race, that would have been fine. But then it sort of went so long that it was like, well, maybe if they had changed positions, Lando would have overtaken him by now because he seems a little bit faster.
Yeah,
and it was a very strange situation. And then even once he gave the spot back, he was just kind of like awkwardly tailgating him, like, am I allowed to overtake him again?
Yeah.
Or like, what?
Yeah. It was just so like...
What's like the done thing in that situation?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Earlier in the race, he was told he was allowed to race his teammate when I think he was 4 seconds off of Oscar. And then towards the end of the first stint, he started to close on Oscar. And I think he got to like 1.2. And the radio message came on and it was like, yep, you're allowed to attack your teammate. Like, you're there to race. And then it was like, 25 laps later, you're not allowed to touch him. Get out of the way. And it was a very bizarre, badly managed situation from McLaren's side, but it was also a very bizarre way to approach it from Lando's side. And Oscar is literally just stuck between a rock and a hard place, just like, what the fuck? We had this plan in place that like midway through the race, whoever's leading will win the race. And they didn't follow it. So yeah, it took the shine off of Oscar's maiden win, which was a shame because I think the way that, especially here in Australia, the way that, have you seen like Melbourne have been putting up like posters and like all billboards have just been Oscar's face and shit. Like people are frothing the Oscar win.
Yeah, it's sick.
But he stood on the podium and just looked like a bit like awkward.
Yeah, okay.
But nah, it was a great race. I'm really hoping that we see more of this kind of stuff. But I would love my personal favorite thing there would have been no team orders, McLaren rack off and just say, Oscar, if you want to win the race, you've got to fucking catch him. Put Oscar on put them both on the best strategy possible and let them fucking race. Yeah. That would be my preferred situation.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in an ideal world, they just wouldn't have pitted Lando earlier.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying is like they should have gone, oh, Oscar's in front. Maybe we pit Oscar now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I don't get. It didn't really seem like Lewis was a threat. Like even at the end of the race, Lewis was like, I was nowhere near as fast as the McLarens.
Yeah.
So like, it wasn't like he was an actual threat. Like they could have just pitted Oscar first and then just let them race properly rather than having these weird orders that you have to follow it. But
it was also like Oscar, like Lando was sending a message to his engineer to send to Oscar's engineer to go to Oscar, like you need to catch it. And it was just all, oh mate, this is so ugly. Yeah. Like it's just ugly. Yeah. But yeah, Lewis in the cool down room and in the interviews afterwards was just like, he was just funny as fuck. Like Lando came in and like threw his cap on the ground. So like he comes in, throws his cap on the ground, like his P2 cap. And then Lewis goes, oh, you guys are fast. And then like Lando's just like, he goes, you had a fast car 7 years ago. And like just sends a random dig at Lewis when Lewis is just trying to be like fun and laughing and joking and just,
that was weird.
It was fucking a weird post-race situation from Lando.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. We could cover more cars. Obviously, Williams fucking dominated as per usual. P14, 0 points. Get in there, boys. That's what we want to see. Michael, who works with us on the We Got the Chocolates podcast, he came in on Monday and he was like, oh, Williams did well. And I was like, we didn't get a point. He was like, yeah, but you didn't finish last. I was like, well, that's fair. That's very fair.
Has got a great point. That is progress. Go Williams.
We're moving on up. Yeah. Fuck you, Sauber. I mean, they're going to become Audi and then they're going to fucking dominate us, but who cares? I want to throw to a little meme of the week. This photo came out from a race like 7 or 8 races ago. Can't remember what race it was, but it was Sergio Perez and he's got Lando Norris, George Russell, Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc all stood around him. This was like right before this was when Max was like winning everything at the very beginning of the season. And people started questioning Checo's time in F1, like questioning whether he was going to sign another contract or not. Everyone kept saying, this is Checo, because everyone's looking at Checo. He's clearly talking. Everyone kept saying, oh, this is Checo, like asking the boys to help him out, like make Max look shit so that he can keep his seat. Since then, since this photo came out, Lando has won, George has won, Oscar has won, Carlos has won, Lewis has won, Leclerc has won. So they're all now race winners trying to help Checo out, but Checo is still in the dog shit because he's still not doing good. Crashing out of qualifying, and then, okay, he came back, he finished P7 or something like that, but like, not the best.
Yeah, no, he's had a tough time with it, old Checo, hasn't he? What happened? Because he, like, at the start of the season, Max finished 1, he finished 2, and it seemed like that for a couple of races. Like Red Bull were just going to kill it, and then what's happened? I think the Red Bull car at the start of the season was heads and shoulders above every other car on the grid. Right.
So it was more difficult for him to look bad. When you actually look at the gaps per lap and gaps in qualifying and stuff to Max Verstappen, they've not really changed since the beginning of the season.
Okay.
Like he's qualifying at a consistent pace behind Max. The problem is that's maybe like half a second to a second slower than Max. The difference is that everyone else on the grid has caught up. So now everyone else is slotting in between that, and it's making Checo look really fucking bad.
Okay.
So yeah, like he's doing the same job as what he always was. It's just highlighted how bad of a job in relation to every other team that he's actually doing.
Okay.
And I don't think, even though he not long ago signed a contract for Red Bull for next season, I think that will be binned before the end of the season. And I think I would love Yuki Tsunoda to get the seat for next year. I think he's done enough to prove it. I don't think Danny Ricciardo has done enough, but now the rumors are that Liam Lawson is going to just walk straight into the Red Bull seat, which I think would suck for Yuki and it would suck for Liam, because I think if Liam Lawson got the seat in Red Bull, we would see the same fate as what Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly did when they got the Red Bull seat. It's too soon. He's not got enough F1 experience, and he would crumble, and it just wouldn't work.
Okay.
So I'd love it to be Yuki.
Okay. Well, they're all very big predictions, Dave. But
yeah.
Sounds good.
Do you think Checo's going to stay in the car?
I mean, he literally has a contract. So
yeah, but contract. This is F1 skin. Who cares about contract?
Okay.
Christ, paper can burn.
Okay.
Or just be ripped, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, we don't need to set fires. Come on, skin.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up another lap at the Formula Fools podcast. We hope you enjoyed the ride as much as we did, and that it's now your turn to get in touch, to join the Formula Fools family. Connect with us on our socials that we post on all the time. Like, we've posted so much content recently.
Yes. All right. We'll get better at posting content. We'll do our job.
Yeah. Come on, Mikas, pull your finger out.
Yeah. That's his fault. You can also leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. That would be great. I think the reviews are mainly Apple, really, but ratings on Spotify.
Yeah.
All that sort of jazz. They all help. Whatever you can do.
Exactly.
Please do it.
Yeah, exactly. Also, if you've got any questions, just send us a DM on Instagram with a little voice note or any questions, and we will get around to answering them. We've got pre-season coming up, so I would love to bank a bunch of these and then do like a little listen to the Fools episode or segment where we answer a lot of your questions about the current season or history or whatever. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.